Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. Well, let's bring you some of those pictures that you've sent in to us here on Channels Television. The first is this picture on your screen, and it shows a bad road, which our eyewitness reporter calls an abandoned federal road in Ojugo. This road is said to link Ikorodu, Shagamu, and the Redemption Camp in Ogun State. Our reporter is asking the government to give adequate attention to this road. The next one shows the Agor Palace Way in Okota here in Lagos. According to our eyewitness reporter, the road was initially damaged by the contractor handling it after bringing materials and then packing up overnight, claiming lack of payment. The people of the area are appealing to the state government to rescue them from the harrowing experience they go through daily on the road. Finally, we bring you this illegal refuse dump site near the Ilori Central Mosque. Our eyewitness reporter says refuge and sewage are dumped daily at this site, despite several warnings from the Ministry of Environment. Residents of the area are now calling on the appropriate agencies of government to take action. Well, thanks a lot for sending in all your pictures, and we do ask you to keep them coming. And we're going to continue with our coverage of activities at the National Assembly today. And earlier, the Senate President read out the names in the second batch of the list of ministerial nominees as sent by the President, Muhammadu Buhari. On the list are fairly unknown people compared to the earlier list, and perhaps that those are the technocrats that many Nigerians have been waiting for. Our political correspondent, Seun Okimbaloye, reports.
Yes, you're welcome.
The suspense heightened over ministerial nominees when some of President Muhammadu Buhari's aides on Monday afternoon submitted a second batch of the list to the Senate President. The anticipation for most Nigerians doubled. Everyone wants to see the first set of nominees screened, and now no one wants to be in the dark as to those who will make the second list.
The Senate is waiting for the minority leader.
16 names, and the Senate President reads them.
Final list of ministerial nominees. Number 1, Khadija Buka Abba Ibrahim. Claudius Omoleye Daramola. Professor Anthony Onwuka. Jeffrey Onyema, Brigadier General M.M. Dan Ali, retired. Barrister James E. Ocholi, Zainab Shamsuna Ahmed, Okechukwu Enelama, Muhammadu Bello, Mustafa Baba Sheshuri, Miss Aisha Abubakar.
Quietly until Dr. Saraki mentioned this man.
Henike Lokobri.
The senators murmured. One of their own, Heineken Lokobiri, a former senator from former President Jonathan's state of Bayelsa.
Order.
The chief whip had to caution his colleagues before the reading could continue.
Professor Isaac Adewale, Pastor Usani Uguru, and Abubakar Buhari Bawa.
As soon as the Senate President was done reading the list, a point of order was raised on the floor. Some PDP senators are not happy.
I want to come under this constitutional point of order to highlight the fact that there is no ministerial nominee from the FCT. I think that the best way to determine this is that subsequently we should, in compliance with the Constitution, ensure that names are attached to states. Because as I speak to you now, I'm not even sure who is from Enugu State. I can as well say that Enugu is not represented. But
that point established, preparations for the screening about to get underway, but the controversy over the home state where Mrs. Amina Mohammed represents come up for deliberations.
Amina Ibrahim Mohammed was mistaken for a ministerial nominee for Kaduna State, whereas she was actually a ministerial nominee for Gombe State.
The senators agree that she represents Gombe State and not Kaduna State as a petition referenced. She is then cleared for screening.
That the Senate do now consider the nominee of Mrs. Amina Mohammed as ministerial nominee of Federation of Gombe State. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
16 names on the second list, bringing to a total of 37 nominees for President Muhammadu Buhari. Perhaps what could have satisfied the constitutional requirement in putting together a federal cabinet. Sheung Okimbaloe, Channels Television News.
Now, even though there were pockets of resistance against some of the nominees by groups in their states, those who have been screened seem to have scaled that hurdle. But there seems to be a new set of agitations by those who claim that their states are not represented in the 37-man list. Well, let's bring in a data and information analyst, Mr. Babajide Ogunsonwo, to look at the numbers and the pattern of representation. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
It's great to always be here.
I know. Well, analyze what you saw on the floor today.
It's interesting. To make it and put it in simple terms, there were 10 ministers, potential ministers that were screened. But what really had happened was you had only 2 ministers that spent less than 5 minutes. Then we had 4 ministers that spent between 15 and 30 minutes during their screening. And you then had another 4 ministers that did above 40 minutes. So today, the 2 ministers that spent less than 15 minutes were Alhaji Lai Mohammed and Udo Udoma. Udo Udoma spent only 14 minutes. But the person that spent the least time during today's screening was Alhaji Lai Mohammed. He spent only 11 minutes. Now, what is probably more crucial is not to look at those that spent between 15 and 30 minutes. No, what is more crucial is those that spent more than 30 minutes. And there were 4 of them. You had the potential minister that spent 59 minutes. Mr. Dambazu. He spent 59 minutes. You also had Fayemi, he spent 45 minutes. You had Dr. Osage Ehanire, who spent 48 minutes. And you then also had Sulaiman, Dr. Sulaiman that spent 35 minutes. So in all, we clearly see 2 major areas that we want to focus on. Those that spent less than 15 minutes and those that significantly spent more than 30 minutes.
What's your issue with those who spent a longer time?
Those that spent a longer time, we will classify them as those that potentially will be on the watch list, not necessarily a danger list. Because in most times, especially because we had those that significantly spent less than 15 minutes, those that spent above 30 minutes potentially are those that we want to look at what the discussions will be now that they've been screened. Will all these 4 ministers be approved by the Senate? It wasn't necessarily because the Senate wanted to understand more about them. I think they were talking about some subjects that the Senate needed to understand if they had the capacity to serve within the areas that they are potentially being screened for.
But what about the argument that a lot of what we see now is just a list of names without portfolios and without the states that they come from? How could you possibly screen somebody without knowing where they're going to be fixed? And so the length of time, does that even come in that kind of scenario?
And that's the challenge the Senate had with screening the ministers. They had no idea of where this potential ministers and what ministries they will be serving in. So they had to rely largely on what they've met on their CV. We also have cases of groups that are talking about not being represented yet. So until we get the full 37 members that names have been submitted, until that full list has been exhausted, we can't clearly say that no state has been represented.
Those groups are talking about Enugu and the FCT. Those are the 2 who have come out to say, wait a minute, the 7-man list is not all-inclusive. Are we going to go that way now?
We're going to have to wait until the last person is screened, because during the screening, we'll then know what state they represent. But at the moment, we'll have to wait until the last person is screened before we then can confirm if all states have been represented or not all states have been represented. In today's discussion as well, you see a lot of expert talk. We didn't get a lot of potential ministers talking about ideas. And the reason why we need a lot of ideas is we look at those experts that have managed various ministries over time, and we look at it based on even the unemployment figures. In 1985, when the general left as the then president, unemployment was 6.1%. By 1999, when we then had General Obasanjo, unemployment had nudged up to 8.2%. By the beginning of his second term in 2003, unemployment then was 14.8%. And then when the President Jonathan took over from President Yar'Adua, unemployment had then even moved further to 21.4%. Yeah. Presently, unemployment, based on the report from National Bureau of Statistics, is 26.5%. And this has been the trend, and this is what the experts have really done. So we want a list where we'll find a mixture of experts, which are the older people, and younger people that come in with the ideas.
I'm just going to have to ask you, we had another extra 3 names today, women, making 6 women, 31 men. Tell me what that says about the balance that's going on finally now.
So right now we have 6 women
31 men.
out of 31 men. So we have a list of 37 people. Women representation on this list right now is only 16% compared to the list from President Jonathan in 2011 that had 13 women sent to the Senate out of 40 members. So in 2011, we had a list that was sent to the Senate that had women representation of 32%. The list we have currently right now has a woman representation of only 16%. So for those that are gender specific or have a gender bias towards governance, they will really not like this list. Just as those that have a youth bias towards this list will also really not like this list in terms of youth and gender imbalance.
Data and information analyst, Mr. Babajide Ogunsowe, always a pleasure for you joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's move on now. The Ekiti State Governor, Mr. Fayose, has asked the people of Ekiti to support any Ekiti nominee at the federal level, irrespective of political affiliation. Well, this comes as ministerial nominees were screened in Abuja, one of which is the former governor of the state, Dr. Fayemi. The governor, during his state monthly broadcast, says support for an Ekiti nominee, irrespective of who it might be, is important for the development and unity of the state.
Through the window. Destroy anybody in Ekiti takes us nowhere, but take us to a point of losing. So I'm not going to promote that. And I've sent messages, I've written to our members, the senators, they must support anybody from Ekiti. Fayemi or whoever they present to them, they must support him. They must give him the opportunity. There's a difference between a ministerial appointment and issues in Ekiti. If you have issues against Fayemi, there are other ways to channel it. But destroying an Ekiti man for immediate gain, I won't be part of it.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigerian Economic Summit continues in Abuja. Do join us again.